Welcome to Art by Rick. I'm Rick. Today's show is going to demonstrate something that's a little bit different. This is a technique which plays with light and illusion. Basically, it's a flat painting. When you do the design on it, the design looks like it's, for lack of better words, maybe three-dimensional or even two-dimensional. It's taking advantage of tricking the eye of looking into something that looks like it has some depth to it, like it goes back or it even comes off the painting itself. Now, to do this, I did a small little sample, and I'll hold that up for you now. I don't know if you can see this little painting right here, but this is just some basic barrels or a barrel design on a flat canvas. And depending on which way you look at it, you'd be able to see that those look like they have a little bit of depth to them, like they're coming right off the canvas itself. So I'm going to do a larger canvas like this on today's show, and I'm going to show you how I did that. The tools that I'm going to use are real simple. I'm going to use a 12 by 24 canvas. I'm going to take that canvas and paint it a dark color. And then I'm going to use a sponge. I have a sponge here, just a plain sponge, and the cap to a jar. And I'll show you how I use those when we do this painting. So let's get started, lay it up, and we'll start to do the painting, and I'll demonstrate how this is going to work. All right, so what I've done here is I've taken a 12 by 24, this is 12 inches wide by 24 inches long, canvas, stretched white canvas like I always use. It's been sealed with acrylic gesso. It's on a wood frame. You can see that it's framed in the back. And I've painted it in such a way where I've put black acrylic paint on this. Now, the way I applied that black acrylic paint is I just used a regular brush, fine bristles, and I painted so that I was doing long strokes kind of going up and down this way. I did that because I wanted a nice flat surface. I didn't want to get any hairs of the brush or strokes from the brush or whatever to disrupt the design that I'm going to do. So nice long strokes up and down on this canvas with black paint. Now you can use any different kind of color that you want as long as it's a dark color. I've used green, you can use blue, you can even use a dark red, colors like that. The idea is to be able to lay some color over it that's the opposite, because when you drag that bottle top, as I showed you, through the paint, you want the paint that's underneath, the darker paint, to come up, and that's going to give you that illusion of depth. So I'm going to rearrange the camera and put it in such a way where you can see the canvas. I'll show you how I cover it with paint, and then we'll do our technique to make these barrel type things on the canvas itself to trick the eye to think that the canvas is deeper instead of just being a flat canvas. This is a technique that a lot of artists will use when they're painting scenery where they want things to look far away or close up. So it's kind of that same idea, but again, this is an abstract. I'm keeping it very simple here so that you will be able to do something like this yourself if this is the kind of painting you'd like to have hanging in your home. Now I've laid the canvas down here onto the table that I'm going to be working on. It's a black canvas and my covering is black, so I'm sorry that it kind of blends in together a little bit. But again, I'm using a dark color. And because I'm using black, obviously the opposite color for black would be something like a white. So I'm going to use white paint on this. Again, I'm trying to get that two-dimensional or three-dimensional look when I drag my cap through it. So how am I going to apply the paint onto the canvas? Well, there's a number of different things that I could do. I could use a paintbrush and put it on. Sometimes when you put a paintbrush on, though, you might put a little bit too much paint on, so that when you're doing the drag with the cap, you're not going to get that see-through type look to give it that depth. So the best way to do this would be to use the sponge. So I showed the sponge that I was going to use, and I'm going to use just some regular white acrylic paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this canvas here with the white paint. Now, people say to me, how much paint do you put on? Well, I just basically throw some dots of paint on here. If I wanted to get real fancy, I could use a couple of different colors and just, do maybe a color on the top and do a blend, which I've showed on other shows. But I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to cover this white canvas, or this black canvas, excuse me, with the white paint. And what I'm doing is I'm just blotting the paint on, because I don't want it too thick, but I do want it thick enough to be able to drag the jar top or cap top through it and to make that design. So this is, it takes a little bit of time to do this because you want to really cover it. I may have to open another bottle of paint here. But again, I'm just going to keep dabbing on this. Bring it right up to the edge. And I'm just dabbing, 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 dabbing. I find if I go back and forth, it kind of allows me to cover this in such a way where I'm not going to miss any spots. If you do get a little bit of, black showing through, well, that's okay. You can always go back and dab it again. Now I'm working relatively quickly here because I don't want this paint to dry on me. I want to be able to drag through it and make the design that I want to make without too much of a fuss. Okay, so I'm just going to add some more paint down here to the bottom. And again, I'm just taking my sponge and I'm just blotting on this, making sure that I'm covering the whole canvas with the white paint. For you, those of you that have watched Art by Rick before, you probably noticed, well, I don't know if you can really see me or not, but I did put my paint apron on. I'm always conscious about trying not to get too much paint on my clothes. I tend to get a lot of paint on my hands when I'm doing painting. I'm one of these people that likes to get into my painting, so I do tend to get a lot of paint on me, but that's fine too. Again, I'm just using the sponge. I'm going back and forth. Now I'm kind of going up and down because I'm just covering this canvas with the paint. And I'm trying to cover it as evenly as I can because I don't want to get too many puddles, I guess is the best way to describe it, when I'm dragging the cap across, because otherwise, it's going to take a little longer to dry. So, all right, so I think I've got this pretty well covered, and I'm just going to keep working it until I get it all covered. All right, so now I have my black painted acrylic 24 by 12 canvas covered in white acrylic paint, which is my opposite color, and I've sponged it on. All right, I think that's kind of even right there. All right, so now the trick is to make our design. So now the trick is to make our design. So I've chosen a smaller cap so I can do a number of these on the canvas. You could use a bigger jar cap. This is a bigger one. I've tried, cups. I've tried the whole jar. Anything round for this barrel shape that I'm doing. So in this case here, I'm going to use the cap. And what I'm going to do is I'll start from the corner here. I'm going to turn the cap a couple of times because I want to kind of dig right through the paint itself. And then I'm going to drag it maybe 3-4 inches. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to lift straight up. Okay? I'm going to do it again. I'm going to start here. I'm kind of giving it a twist. And I'm going to drag it. Now I'm trying to apply enough pressure on this to go through the paint that I've just put on the canvas and drag it across in order to let some of the black that's underneath it show through. Now I'm choosing to do a pattern which is just really simple. I'm going to try and keep these as even as I can and about the same size. And I'm basically just turning the cap into the paint and dragging. When I lift the cap up, I'm trying to lift it as straight up as I possibly can because I want to try to avoid as much puddling as possible. Now that one's a little wiggled, but that's okay. And again, I'm going to go right here. I'm digging the cap in, I'm drawing, digging the cap in, and I'm drawing, digging the cap in, and I'm drawing. And sometimes I'll even do a little bit of a fake, and I'll do something off the edge here, just to kind of give it a complete look. So again, I'm on the end here, drag and draw, dig it in, draw it, dig it in, draw it, just a little piece on the end here, a little piece on the end there. There we go. So that's basically the simplicity of doing this. Now, just like with the other canvas, I'll hold this up. You have a pattern here where it looks like these may be coming off of the canvas itself. So what I'll do now is I'll let this set up so that the paint doesn't drip anywhere, and we'll see what it looks like when it's all dry. And we may have time on the show to do another one in a different color, but we'll play with that. We'll see how things go on. So I'm just going to let this sit for a while, and then I'll be back once it's set up. It was suggested as I'm doing this show, someone has said to me that it's great that you talked about how you prepared the canvas, but why don't you show how you did it? So what I decided to do was I grabbed an 8x10 white plain canvas. This is an untouched plain canvas, very similar to the very first one I showed you at the beginning of the show. I've already sealed this with acrylic gesso, so it's ready to go. When I put a paint on a canvas, if I'm going to paint the edges, which I usually do on all my paintings, I prop it up on little cups. So what I've done is I'm just basically going to take this canvas and put it up on some little cups here so that it is up in the air. Now, let me just get my thing going here. Okay. So the canvas now is up on some cups, and I'm going to paint it. Now, I had said earlier in the show, I use a plain brush. This is a fine bristle brush because I don't want to get streaks in the canvas itself. I want it to be as flat as it possibly can get. You know, I'll move this up a little bit so that you can see it a little better. And all I did was I painted it black. Now, I've discovered over time one of the easiest ways to get a nice flat finish on the canvas itself is to not put the paint directly on the canvas unless you're looking for depth, which I did with the sponge when I did those other paintings that I showed you. I want a flat finish here. So what I'll use, and again, just excuse me as I dive off camera here a little bit, is I grab one of my trusty paper plates, and I'll put the paint on the paper plate so that I can get a nice smooth brush. You know, I'll put the paint in this way so I get a nice smooth finish on it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just add my black paint right onto the paper plate. And I'll take my brush, which I've cleaned, and I'm just basically going to put that into the paint itself so that I can get a nice little bit. I don't want to glob too much. And I'm going to paint the canvas. Now, the way that I'll do this is I always start on the edges, and I'm just going to go around on this, just kind of dabbing the edges. And, you know, someone has said that, you know, just to show how this is done. So again, I'm just kind of going around, just covering the canvas. I like to seal the edges of the canvas. I will go back on the other pieces when they're a little more dry, and I will take some of the white paint that I used, and I'll use that to seal the edges. Or I may go around black. I don't know. I haven't decided as to what I want to do. Most likely white to go from there. So now I'm just covering this canvas with black paint because I'm actually going to end up with a set of 3 on this. I'll have 2 8x10s with a 24 by 12 in the middle, all with the same design, same shape on it, which should make an interesting wall hanging, I would think. Again, you can't see me doing this on the back side here, but I'm just basically painting the edges of the canvas itself. And I'm just applying paint, trying not to go too thick with the paint because I'd like this to set up. And again, I'm just covering this canvas with my black paint. Now, once I've got enough paint on there, I'm just going to go back and forth. I'm just kind of smoothing the paint out so I get a nice flat black surface to later, when this dries, apply the white paint and then use the cap, do the drags to get those barrels to make a matching piece to the other 2 pieces that I've done. So there you go. So now I just let this sit, let it dry, and then I'll come back and put some white paint on it. I'll show you that dragging one more time, and then we'll let all 3 pieces set for the night. And then once they're all dry, I'll show you the set all together, and we'll see what our 2D, 3D painting looks like as a set. Okay, so we're back. So the 8x10 canvas that I painted black is now all dry. So now I'm going to do the same procedure that I did on the 12x24. So I have my white paint. I'm just going to put some blobs of white paint onto the black canvas. And I'm going to use the sponge to basically cover the white canvas, or cover the black canvas, excuse me, with the white. And what I'm doing here is I'm making a companion piece to the other 2 pieces. That first one that I showed you at the very beginning of the show, and the 12x24 that we did just a little while back. So we're just making this companion piece so that we'll have a set of 3. Now, as I said, I did this one because it was suggested to me to actually show doing the canvas and coating it in black, which I explained, but I showed you how I did it and how I made those brush strokes. So again, I'm just using my sponge to cover this canvas with the white. And I think I've got it covered pretty well. Okay, so I've covered this canvas now with the white paint. It's a black canvas. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make my barrel shapes with my cap, just like I did the first one. So again, watch me do this. I'm taking my cap right here, and I'm putting it in the corner, and I'm giving it a little twist so it gets right down to the canvas, and I'm going to drag it and lift up. There we go. And I'll do it again. Twist and drag it and let it up. There we go. Okay. And we'll do another one over here. and one right here. And then I'm going to finish this off by doing 2 on the end, one here, and one right here. So there we go. Very simple companion piece to the one that I did before. I'll lift this up so that you can see it a little bit better. So there you go with our barrel shapes. So we're going to let this one set up. And then at the end of the show, I'll put all 3 together and you'll be able to see what a nice set those 3 will make. So what we're doing here, or what we've done here, is we've just making a 2D or 3D impression type painting. It's a flat painting. We've used a cap to drag the paint in order to give it a shape, so that when you're looking at it, depending on the way that you're looking at it, your eye kind of thinks that this is coming off the canvas, giving you that 2D or 3D effect. So let's let this one set up, and then I'll display all 3. We'll talk about how we did it again, and then we'll move on to the end of the show. So today's show was all about doing a 3D or 2D dimensional type painting to give the illusion that the painting has some depth, that you're looking at something that's drawing you in. In this particular case, I did a set, as you can see here in front of me, which was just a simple black canvas, a white canvas painted black. Again, where I put some white paint, which I sponged on. And then using a cap from a jar, I did a drag, which allowed me to make these barrel shapes. And I decided to do 3 to make a nice little set. So there you go. This gives you an illusion of dimension. You can do a number of different designs. You can do a number of different colors. But that's my 2D, 3D type painting. I thank you very much for watching Art by Rick, and on the next show, we'll try something a little bit different. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.
Sometimes life just happens. Don't worry. Farmington Motorsports will get you back on the road and at a fair price. From towing to tires, emissions to transmissions.
Our ASC certified techs do it all.
Farmington Motorsports is a family-run business. We're a Napa Auto Center and AAA approved. We work on all makes and models, from preventative maintenance to major repairs.
And every repair is backed by our 2-year, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty.
When life happens to you, don't worry. Farmington Motorsports.